Okay, welcome everybody to September 25th. This is the LF Decentralized Trust Technical Advisory Council meeting. As you are all aware, you've all been on this call before. Just a reminder, two things that we have to abide by. The first is our antitrust policy. So we need to be aware of and not participate in any activities that are prohibited under any of the antitrust and competition laws across the world. And then the second thing that we have to abide by is our code of conduct, which is linked in the agenda. While everybody is welcome here, we do need to be respectful of everybody on the call, their opinions and ideas. For announcements today, we have the standard Dev Weekly developer newsletter that goes out each Friday. If you do have something that you would like to include in that newsletter, please do leave a comment for consideration on the wiki page that is linked here in the agenda. This second, or I guess the next question is, does anybody else have any other announcements that they would like to make today? Okay, I think, Ryan, remind me, the TAC nomination period begins October 1st, is that correct?
You got to put me on the spot.
I'm sorry.
I think you're right. I have to go here and take a look.
I think it's October 13th is the starting.
I don't remember. I just know it's coming up soon.
Yeah, so the nominations start on the 13th.
Okay, so the 13th. So then I don't have to remind you all that it's starting. At the moment, I have to keep that for a couple other meetings away. So yeah, we'll just go ahead and move the note taker. All right, so then we'll move on to quarterly reports. So we have shrunk the list, but it's not completely shrunk. We still do have a number of reports that are out there waiting for people to review. So if you have not yet reviewed them, please do. I did notice that I think it was the caliper report. For some reason, if you have already reviewed that, I think Char, you were one person, and I can't remember who the other person was, that had reviewed this previously. The report got closed and then reopened under a different PR. So if you click on the add caliper one, I go to the 194. It was Rama, Enrique, Peter, Diane, myself, and Char that had reviewed it previously. So if you wouldn't mind just reviewing the new one, making sure that all your notes are captured in the new PR, that would be great, so that we can make sure that that one gets taken care of as well. So that was one little weird one that happened this week. Any questions on the quarterly reports as they stand? Anything that we need to talk about there?
Tracy, this is Diane. I was just going to say I need another week for the trust over IP review, and
That's
I'll
fine.
coordinate with Rama. Just got swamped.
No problem. Just let me know when you guys have finished with that. I'll probably catch it on the PR itself, but let me know anyways. Just ping me and we can get that on the agenda for when we're ready to talk about it.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Rama.
Yeah, I'm actually going to be out next week. It's quite a long weekend next week. So I'll be ready with my assessment the week after.
Okay, no problem. We'll plan for 2 weeks from now. And if for some reason things change, let me know, and then we'll get it on the agenda for a later date.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep, no problem. Okay, we do have some overdue reports. Arun, if you wouldn't mind just reaching out to these folks on Discord or GitHub. GitHub's probably best, just to let them know that there's something that they need to do for both Bevel and Besu. That would be great.
Tracy, I didn't follow up with Besu. I'll do re-follow up with them.
Okay, sounds great. For upcoming reports, we do have the Trust over IP Q3 report that is due today. And then the Cacti Q4 and the Fabric Q4 reports are due next week. So if you are somebody who works closely with those projects, just give them a reminder that their reports are coming due. Okay, so then with that, let's move on to our discussion. We were supposed to have this discussion last week, but we didn't end up having enough time, so we moved it to this week, specifically to talk about reports in general. You know, how do we, these are my questions, there's probably more questions, but I think some of the questions that we have are, how do we close annual reports more quickly, so that we're not, halfway through the year and we're still working on quarterly reports? What changes do we want to see in the project updates and reporting so that, we can update the templates if necessary? And then what do we do with late reports? Obviously, this was intended to be kind of a point of intervention for projects, but is there something we want to do specifically when it comes to the life cycle stage of those projects when we haven't seen reports coming in? So those are an initial set of questions, but in general, this is just an open discussion on improving the process for both annual and quarterly reports. Matthew?
Yeah, thanks, Tracy. Yeah, I guess one area that I feel might be worth some discussion is around the voting process and kind of maybe firming up the way that we decide if we're going to be trying to close them out through approvals on the PR by a given time, compared to approving them on the calls. And that was just one area of discussion that I thought might be worth having a bit of a chat around.
Okay. Yeah, I know we could do something slightly different between the annual reviews and the quarterly reviews. So in the annual reviews, if you remember, we did have votes on the calls, specifically with the intention of making sure that people were okay with either leaving a project in its current state, moving it to a different state, either graduate it or back to labs or whatever the case may be, right? For quarterly reports, the process is different in that we do expect that the TAC members will review the PR on GitHub and provide their comments and in the long run, their approval, right? If they're happy with their comments having been followed through on and that sort of thing. So there is a slight difference in that. The other difference between annual reviews and quarterly reviews is that for annual reviews, we do depend on a primary and secondary reviewer. And for quarterly reviews, we depend on everybody to have a look at it. And so there is a slight difference there as well. So yeah, I guess the question really becomes, do we want to change that? Do we think that everybody should be reviewing annual reviews? Do we want to do something different with the approvals for quarterly reviews and or the approvals for annual reviews? So I think that's what Matthew's getting at. Arun?
So I find it useful if project teams start joining at least twice a year, maybe like the annual review. We expect project team to come and present, and maybe the Q3 report, we expect project team to come back and present to the TAC. That's one change I would like to see. I know we had this in the past. That was discontinued for a reason, but I think it would be good to have that back in process.
All right, thanks, Arun. Yeah, just for those who are newer to the TAC, we did actually have for every quarterly report, we didn't have annual reports, we just had quarterly reports at the beginning. And for every quarterly report, we did ask the project teams to come in and provide us an update. Basically, just a short summary readout of what they've put into their quarterly reports. Sometimes those short readouts were very long readouts, where basically the person who was providing that update basically read the report to us, which the TAC found not very useful, because it took a long time, and obviously, you know, I think what people were looking for more generally was a short summary, just to have a conversation with the people who were part of the project. So it was decided that because of those reasons, the long readouts and the nothing else being able to be on the agenda during that time, that we did cut it out so that we asked the TAC members to review the PR and provide their approvals directly. But I could see the benefit definitely of having project members come in and provide updates, at least for the annual report. If not more than that, then that's up to us for discussion. Marcus?
Yeah, I like the idea of bringing back those short presentation for the annual report. I think it would be overkill for quarterly reports. And I think we should then, I mean, really ask for, hey, a short summary, a presentation of, I don't know, 10 minutes, 5 slides, not more than that. And I mean, not reading out the annual report. That makes sense to me. I also still liked our, let's say, our two reviewers approach for the annual report. That makes sense to me. And also is a nice collaboration among different TOC members. That's pretty cool. I think we should stick to that, plus adding this presentation. And I think this year we had quite a few new people doing this annual report for the first time. Well, not a trivial task, right? So the evaluation criteria are maybe not as easy to understand and how to interpret them. For doing that for the first time, I guess that can be better maybe in the next year, assuming people are staying in the TAC. But actually, I'm a little bit more concerned about, the quarterly reports, how we deal with them. Most of the comments are usually the same, like, hey, there's a typo in this and that. Please update from Q2 to Q3 in the header, things like that, which makes it kind of, I wouldn't say boring, that's the wrong word to use here, but well, those issues distract from the interesting things which are usually in the report. And if we are then focusing on finding typos in the report, that basically steals the focus, in my opinion, a little bit.
All right. So I did hear you say that we probably need to be better about the process for TAC members for reviewing annual reports, just in what is being looked for. I know that when I put the schedule together this year, I did attempt to match new TAC members with previous TAC members who had the experience of going through the annual review at least once. Sometimes it worked well, sometimes not, based on when the timing of the reports came in. Sometimes the new person being the lead or the primary on the reports had to do it first, right? But I do agree that we probably need to have some mechanism to basically say these are the sorts of things that we should be looking for and going through. So yeah, definitely I hear you there, and I also hear you about usefulness of what we're getting from the quarterly reports as a question that we need to answer for ourselves. And then I think the other thing I heard from you was the having people come in and do a 10-minute overview for annual reports. of what it is, so that they're presenting that information to the TAC as well. Enrique?
Beautiful.
Yeah, I was gonna take it a different way.
That's fine. I think we've already shifted from Matthew's question at this point anyway, and so eventually maybe we'll get back to Matthew's question. But please.
Hopefully. Yeah, I kind of raised this discussion because I was reviewing the Caliper one, I think a few weeks ago. So that we have a template for quarterly reports, but we don't actually have like a template or checklist for reviewers.
Mhm.
And I agree with Marco's point. Sometimes we focus a lot on typos or on dates or on like small things, but it feels like the things that we should look for in a quarterly review is more like, are you making progress, or was the annual goals you set out? Are you still like, are you putting features out, releases out? Are the insights good? It feels like we need a checklist on our side, and it's not just a green tick on GitHub that we get 7 green ticks or what the number is, and we go, yep, all good. Looks good to me. It's more like, have we actually looked at the report and checked it against a set of things that we expect from each report? And I know it's difficult to have the same checklist for all the projects, because we have the conversation as we go on standards projects and code projects, etc. But I think we could maybe come up with something that we put in, so that we just make sure we cover everything we want to get out of a review. I just wanted to open that up and see what people think of that.
Trying desperately to find my hand raising thing.
Go ahead, Jay.
So yeah, so I agree with Enrique. It's kind of, I'd like to see something more along the lines of a SWOT analysis, like, you know, strengths, weaknesses, you know, not even weaknesses, but areas to watch, and making sure that the content is there. So, you know, really focus on the strengths. Did they deliver what they were supposed to for the according to their roadmap for that year or that period of time? And then point out areas to watch and give sort of an overall assessment on project health and community health. That's, you know, that's really, I think, the covers the basics, besides just the, I put in so many typos that, and even in my comments in our reports, that I feel bad about that, but I don't think that's really the context. It's some form of a SWOT report would be more appropriate.
Yeah, I think the way I'm trying to phrase this is the quarterly report should be a two-way, like highway. They're showing us what they're up to, and they're looking for feedback and to see what they're doing well, what they're doing not. And sometimes it's more like a grading, and the feedback might not be there as well. So that's where I'm going with this. Sorry, go ahead, Arun.
Yeah.
No worries. +1 to Enrique. So I wanted to add on top of what Enrique just said. What we are missing today is a way for us to know if previously a project team committed on something. Maybe like during annual reports, we all discuss and we say, we'll come back to this project. We'll give them a couple of months or 3 months or so. And it slips through until the next annual report, and similar discussions happen. And again, the same thing repeats. At least this happened with a couple of projects in the last 2 years. So what I see is gap could be, given that this annual report and the quarterly reports that happen in the gap of about 3 to 4 months of period for that part, for each project. It's difficult for TAC members to remember the context of that project and what were discussed related to that project. If there is a way for us to track what actions were taken as part of, or like what actions were given, not taken, but like, or like what areas were identified as critical areas for each project during each review phase, if there is a way for us to track that until the next project review, that will help TAC be more focused and see if the project is putting an effort in that area. That way we have progressive review as opposed to just reviewing in that period of what we receive as a report. I'm not sure if I put it forward across the way I wanted to, but the progressive evaluation is what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, I think I definitely understood what you were getting towards, Arun, because you are correct. There were at least 2 projects that we said we'd come back to. We were giving them time. Peter, you were one of the people who said that. Diane, I believe you were another person on one of your reviews that said that. Peter, Diane, you may have been on the same project, and so therefore I'm conflating the two. But I believe there was at least 2 projects that we said that for. But we never came back in the quarterly reports and saw if they were out of their, I forget what we called it, phase. But we wanted to come back and evaluate them after 3 to 6 months. So I agree that we need to do a better job of that. The other thing that came to my mind, and it's something just to talk about, it's not like, let's do this, is, we do have these primary, secondary reviewers for each annual review. What if we said that those people actually followed throughout the year that particular project to ensure that they were making progress on their goals, ensured that if there was something that we said needed to happen in the annual review, that they're actually doing that. I know Rama, just because it's fresh on my mind, and I can't even remember, I think it was the Loch Ness project, that you had mentioned, they should do things with OpenSSF scorecards and getting those badges in their READMEs, right? Following up on that and making sure that those things are getting done when we recommend those in the annual review. So it's an idea. I don't know if it's the right idea, but it's an idea of potentially a way that we can do that. And making sure that we are following throughout the year, what it is that we said we wanted to have happen with a particular project. Matthew?
Thanks, Tracy. Yeah, I wondered if we had sought feedback from project maintainers on the process. I know we don't want to be driven entirely by what they might perceive as as lighter weight as process as they can get away with, but I think it would be helpful to contribute to what process we think is most effective, to get some of the feedback around, particularly around perhaps the timeliness of comments from the TAC. Would it be more helpful if it was less asynchronous for some of them? Because currently it's very asynchronous. I wonder if inviting some of them to a TAC call to give us, or to contribute to exactly this kind of discussion would have merit.
Yeah, I would say, Matthew, that we haven't specifically reached out. Obviously, we somewhat expect that the people on this call are potential proxies for maintainers, although that may be a bad assumption, right? There may be other maintainers out there who have specific ideas and would like to contribute to these sorts of conversations. Obviously, these calls are open for everybody to join, and we don't typically see maintainers joining these calls, which is unfortunate in and of itself. But yeah, I hear you, and I'm not quite sure how we go about that. Either, getting people to join these calls and or, doing some sort of survey, which surveys don't tend to get responses either. So I hear you. I just don't know how we go about making sure that happens.
Yeah, I certainly think it would only be likely to be effective if there was a specific invite to a specific call on that particular topic that might elicit some people who have been doing this process for a year or two or more for certain projects. It might elicit a kind of, oh yeah, actually, now I've got some really useful feedback that it sounds like the TAC are really keen to kind of gather in one place in one particular meeting.
Yeah, that's it. What you just said is an interesting point. There are specific people in projects that typically fill out these reports. Maybe those are the people that we should be targeting with the
Hmm.
questions and the, you know, potential meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, Wenjing.
Yeah, Jesse, so I thought you know, this discussion is really helpful for me, and I have one question that might be coming from different perspective. Um, and it seems, you know, most people or maintainers are quite busy, and they probably know, you know, what they're doing well or not doing very well. And the question in my mind has always been like, why, you know, why this is not a high priority to them? Why filling out a report or present that information to the TAC doesn't feel like it's a high priority for them to spend time on. And maybe so another way of thinking about this is if, you know, we trying to help these projects, think about what we could do or what this process may be able to do to help the projects, whatever problem they may have. So they see it as a opportunity rather than a burden have to do this. You know, it's not a it does so it doesn't feel like you are filing a, you know, a government mandated report that you have to do. I guess, you know, I don't know what, you know, better way to put it, but maybe that's another way to think about how we could make this process better.
Yeah. Yeah, because I hear you. I think a lot of projects do feel this is a burden to them instead of a benefit to them. You know, I still go back to that page I shared, what, 2 weeks ago, last week, I don't know when it was, about the reasons why we do these reports in general. You know, maybe it's just a constant reminder for that, that we do need to, you know, get that word out there as to why this is something that's beneficial instead of burdensome. But yeah, maybe those reasons that I have and that the TAC put together previously are not beneficial enough. So yeah, I guess that's a question of how do we make this more beneficial for a project.
Yeah, one of the common benefits that I saw elsewhere is when a project report to the TAC, usually, you know, in this meeting, there are a lot more people. And so it's one way of introducing the project to people otherwise wouldn't come to their own meetings. So will be, you know, a forum essentially to look at their accomplishment and, you know, potentially their problems that they need help for. But that would require like we schedule time for a presentation and discussion rather than filling in, you know, in can have this short report that few people actually read. Anyway, that's you know, one example. I think people see this valuable.
So maybe a thought, again, open for discussion, not something that we have to do or that we should do. But you know, going back to Arun's comment, I think it was Arun's comment, about, you know, having them present at the annual review and then maybe for the Q3 having them come. What if we turn that a bit and combined it with what you're saying, which is the annual review becomes the, you know, the thing that we really focus and spend time on, making sure that they have some goals set up and that they're doing the things that they need to be doing, that we're seeing kind of what happens. And then in the Q3 timeframe is when we ask projects to come in and actually give that overview, so that, you know, people who might want to attend these project update, all right, can join those particular calls. I think that the one thing, as I said, that came to mind that is potentially concerning is, you know, does that basically take up the whole Q3 timeframe for TAC meetings to, you know, only be about projects and not to be talking about things like task forces and other things that we need to be accomplishing. So yeah, I don't know what the right answers are, just some thoughts to throw out there as to potential ways of accomplishing what people are saying. Okay, did we want to get back to Matthew's initial question / concern about the fact that we do annual reports versus quarterly reports differently for voting purposes? Any thoughts on?
Not gonna s-
What was that, Matthew? You came on off mute and then back on mute.
Yeah, sorry, Enrico would just and I were just mulling things over here. One thing that crossed my mind was again, I don't know the history of how the TAC landed on kind of 4 reports a year. Has there ever been discussion of 2, like an annual bigger one and a mid-year approach? Has that been something that's been tried as a way of perhaps getting more focus on a smaller number of reports?
That has not been discussed. Well, it's been discussed between just a couple people, but not with the wider TAC. And it's not something that we have tried before. It's always been quarterly that we've done before. But yeah, I could definitely see a half year sort of report.
Yeah, I think the thing that strikes me is that because of some of the asynchronous nature of some of the reports, it can easily be, I guess, a month or 6 weeks for a quarterly report to come in and go through reviews and some comments go to and fro. And you kind of, sometimes it feels like you're coming out the back of one and going straight into the next one. And actually you might feel like your project hasn't moved on enough to start writing a new report for only 6 or 8 weeks worth of difference. I think that's the thing that crosses my mind.
Yeah, I maybe just a thought on that, because I hear you, right? If we look at, say, the Fabric report that hasn't yet been approved from Q3, but yet the Fabric report for Q4 is due next week.
Yeah.
Now this is due to 2 things, right? It's due to the fact that the Fabric report came in late, and the Q3 report came in late, and then we have taken a lot of time to review that as a TAC. This year, I think we have definitely slowed down on reviews for quarterly reports, which is, that's on us, not on the project. So I hear you there. My concern with potentially going to half years is these reports that aren't being submitted in the quarterly, if they're not submitted in the Q3 timeframe, say, what do we know about that project? Does that mean that project's dead because it's been 6 months and they don't have anything to report on? And then therefore we should, archive it, move it to end of life. I don't know what the right steps are. And I think, part of this process that we're talking about when it comes to reports, whatever time frame they happen to be, should also be, what do we do when we're not seeing reports come in?
Yeah, I agree. I think clarity on what the process looks like when reports aren't coming in, I think that would be helpful as well. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, not to shoot your idea down, Matthew. I think your idea has some potential merits. It's just a question of, do we still get, as a TAC, out of the reports what we're looking for, which is to see that projects are still healthy and moving forward as they may be. And if we can do that with 2 reports a year, great. If we can't, what is it, 3? Is it 4? Like, what is that right number? I don't know. Diane?
So I kind of like the quarterly reports, though we may need to make them simpler, so they're easier to do, but they do let us have, even if no progress is being made, or it gives us insight so that we're not 6 months out, finding out about something that happened 6 months ago. There's, it gives us an opportunity to help and advise. So I prefer the quarterly reports. I think our process for reviewing them could be a little faster. And this, but if there was a little more rigor in the time and the time to submit, so that they were more timely submissions, maybe in order to get more timely submissions, we shorten or the requirements for quarterly reports or template them better.
All right, Marcus?
I'm just wondering if we could just ask for the next quarterly report for the maintainers' feedback on or opinion on the report, if what they think, if this is the right format. I mean, just get also their opinion and to develop an idea why also on their side this is so delayed, because it's boring or they don't see value in it. I mean, whatever the reasons are.
Will we do that in the template? Will we do that on the GitHub pull request? What's your thought? Will we do that in a email to all the maintainers? And what do you think is the best way to get that feedback?
I think I don't have a strong opinion there, but I think I'm just curious to hear from the maintainers. I mean, we can also shout this through all the channels and see if we get some feedback, right? Maybe some people don't want to answer something like that because they would not be happy with revealing the true answer for that. So therefore, I mean, making this in the section in the report, well, I mean, puts a little bit force into it. I don't know. I think maybe as a first step, we can just ask maybe on Discord, I mean, in the maintainers channel, and ask for, hey, can we get some feedback from you guys on the quarterly reports? What's your thoughts on that? And I mean, if we don't get some feedback, if we don't hear anything, I mean, then we can try other means.
Yep. Okay, so I've heard that comment a couple times already about getting feedback from the maintainers themselves. So let me take an action and put a message out on the maintainers Discord channel. I'll create a thread and just, ask people for their thoughts. Maybe what they see as being beneficial about them, what they don't like about them. I don't know. What are the right questions we should ask? But yeah, if you have any suggestions, stick them in the chat here and I'll take that into consideration when I create my question. All right, any other thoughts on reports in general? Things that we might want to change, things that we might want to consider doing?
And I do think we still have on the table creating templates for standards initiatives. So I just wanted to remind that. So as long as that's part of all of this conversation too, that would be great.
Yeah. So I think the takeaway from last week that I remember was that we were going to have you and Rama do the review for trust over IP. And then, get some ideas about things that we might want to do differently when it comes to that, and potentially create a task force at the point at which we've gone through the trust over IP one. Potentially, hopefully getting some people from trust over IP to provide their thoughts and insight too. So that it's not just us directing it, but it's also folks who are part of these projects being part of the project. Okay. Obviously, if there's anything else that comes up with regards to quarterly reports, definitely let us know. Drop it in the TAC channel, or this is just the beginning of the conversation. This is not the end of the conversation. So we'll see what we can come up with as far as potential changes that we might want to make when it comes to this. Last call for any discussion on that one before we move on in the agenda. Okay. So the next item on the agenda was there is this PR that has been put in place to remove LFX Insights Best Practices score from the project lifecycle as one of the places that we look at to evaluate the different criteria that exist within the life cycle for moving a project between states. So then the methods would only be the OpenSSF scorecard scores and the manual inspection of code repositories. Obviously, the reasons for this are the lack of good data, I believe is maybe the way we should say that, in LFX Insights as a whole at this point. And so, yeah, Jessica, anything to add to this? I think this was your PR.
Sorry, I was struggling with the button.
No problem.
Yeah, I mean, the main reason because of this is so far I've noticed a lot of issues with the data, and as of yesterday, even I submitted another issue with the inconsistencies with the data. However, for the even though those issues are being tackled pretty quick by the LFX team, many of these issues involve user per user cases. So it's very difficult for us to go through every single user that also has the same issue with the data. And for the ones that I spotted, because they didn't make sense to me, I was able to report them. But when talking to the LFX team, there's still data that is not correct that unfortunately is up to the contributors to report it themselves. So at this point, the data is not trustworthy. So I suggested to use other focus on other tools like OpenSSF, and we also have GitHub Insights, is what I was using a lot. GitHub Insights, although it's a little bit more repo per repo basis, it does reflect the data correct. So I suggest we use other tools that have proven to be more reliable.
Okay. And Rama, I'm going to put you on the spot because I believe this is something that you wrote when we were doing the project lifecycle task force last year. Obviously this is part of deciding when a project moves between different states. Thoughts on this particular PR and whether or not it makes sense to do this at this point with LFX Insight removal?
I haven't been tracking how good the LFX Insights are. Based on what Jessica says, I'm willing to take her word for it. I think, yeah, I mean, if it's not particularly useful, if nobody has found the scores to be reflective of how the projects are actually working, then yeah, maybe we can remove it. But yeah, but honestly, I have not done my own homework on this.
No, understood. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think there has been a lot of challenges when it comes to LFX Insight. I think this isn't obviously the first time we've talked about this. I think last year we actually had somebody from LFX Insight to get some of our feedback, come to one of the TAC calls and have discussions about the challenges that we saw. So like to me, this isn't necessarily a surprise that we're potentially still having issues with this. Well, maybe it is a surprise, but maybe it shouldn't be. So anyway, Diane? thoughts?
Yeah, so I'll call out my bias. I have access to other tools that do analysis as well, but we did try especially with the HIRO reports and the graduation process. We spent a lot of time with Jessica and other folks trying to fit the LFX data into this, but there were a lot of data omission or data errors in them that and it also didn't allow us to dive deep into separate projects. So there's a lot of feedback that I think we've given to Jessica about that, as well as we do owe, and Hendrik and I owe some feedback to the Open SSF group on things that would be better too. But I think in particular the LFX just isn't the data isn't as accurate and doesn't dive as deep as we really need. And so that kind of puts us into the manual inspection of code repositories and using GitHub's tools when we do our review, if we don't have access to other tools. And I'm not recommending other tools at this moment.
All right, Rama.
Yeah, I was just thinking about the history of these particular criteria, and if you remember, Tracy, I think mostly you and I who were discussing these issues on the Lifecycle Task Force. We were initially thinking about using custom GitHub actions that different projects would have to use, which would track particular criteria. At that time, of course, we were thinking about those criteria or those scores being reported as badges. Then at some point we encountered LFX Insights, Flow Monitor tool, which produces those insights, and we thought, at least from what we could see, it felt like it was it showed the kind of health indicators that we wanted to see for the different projects. But of course, if the tools aren't doing a good job of assessing how well a project is doing, then yeah, we can shelve it and instead just go back to thinking about whether we can create custom GitHub actions that are actually suitable for LFDT projects. I think there's just some work to be done there, but we can again go back and revisit that.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Okay, do we have, what kind of approvals do we have on this particular PR at this point? Andy?
Yeah, we've got a couple.
Just a couple. Okay. So, I'm just trying to figure out would it make sense for people to approve this PR so that we can get it checked in, or should we do a vote here? Rama, is your head still up or new?
No, I just recall something. I mean, in the lifecycle document, I think there are other references to the LFX Insights scores, right? So I think if we merge this PR, we should also remove those. So I don't know if this is a self-contained PR yet.
Yeah, I've actually was going through those. I'll update a little bit later on those, but yeah, I'm sure there's more instances of LFX being mentioned as a. I'm trying to distinguish between when is it mentioned as a recommendation versus like almost like a make sure
Mandate.
LFX exists.
Yeah.
And even I think in some cases when it's mentioned as a recommendation, we also might want to be careful on recommending it, the tool, depending on why is it mentioned as a recommendation, because again, because of the nature of the issues with the data. So yeah, I'll probably be going through those. But for now, this one was making more sense since I discovered it as I was helping out with the quarterly reports and with the recent project graduation. So that's why I put this one.
Right, right. I'm just saying that if you're doing this, if we decide on removing that particular entry, then might as well just remove the other recommendations or mandates, whatever we have, and we can always add them later if need be.
Okay. So I think that sounds like a good idea, Rama. Jessica, if you wouldn't mind just checking out the other instances where we call out LFX in our governance and I guess mostly our governance documents. There may be some in the guidelines, but I don't know that there is. And just updating this PR and just, adding the TAC when that's done so that we can review this through GitHub. I think that would be the best way to go about this.
Sounds good. I will do that.
Yeah,
Okay.
I just looked, it's only mentioned in TAC guidelines, GitHub organization and governing documents, project lifecycle. However, we have gotten feedback that the templates for the annual review and quarterly review are out of date because they talk about things that are wrong. So you might take this as an opportunity to update the templates as well when you're in there, or I can do that next week sometime.
Actually, I was scouting those as well, but I do want to keep them in a separate PR. But yeah, definitely that is something that I am also focusing on.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So I think that's it for our plan discussion today. Is there anything else that anybody would like to bring up today before we close?
This is Diane. Just a reminder that the contributor ladder task force is meeting in a half an hour after this meeting, and we have made some updates to the lab site if people would like to check them out.
All right. Thanks, Diane. Anything else that anybody would like to bring up before we close? All right. If not, then we'll go ahead and close out today's meeting. Thank you for attending, and we will talk to you all again next week.
Thank you. Bye.